This presentation covers the project scope for my ME3901 project on an automatic plant watering system. So the goal of this project is to develop an automatic plant watering system that is capable of monitoring important vitals such as soil moisture, light levels, pH, etc., with the potential to be able to adjust the watering cycle based on these values. So the stakeholders, or the people who actually benefit from a project like this, would be frequent travelers, so workers who need to leave their house for days at a time to travel for business or other reasons and may not necessarily be around to take care of their plant on a day-to-day basis. In addition to this, you have people who are simply just forgetful, people who like owning plants but struggle with taking care of them consistently and end up killing plants instead, as well as busy workers, which is people with a busy schedule that typically doesn't allow for much free time around the house, or maybe somebody who gets home at 10 or 11 p.m. and can't pay very much mind to taking care of their plant when they get home before they go to bed and get ready for work the next day. So the reason why I chose this project is because I am one of the people who would serve to benefit from it. Taking care of plants is something that I like to do, but is something that I don't because I struggled with watering them on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, so in terms of the needs for this project, I read a New York Botanical Gardens article that stated a number of polls about plant ownership in America. So, in terms of the amount of people in America who own plants, of the people who responded to the poll, 66.7% of households responded that they owned at least one plant, while only 33.3% responded that they had no plants. And among millennials who responded to the poll, 48% reported being worried about keeping their plants alive, while only 52% did not. And in that NYBG article, 1 in 3 millennials responded that they considered themselves to be a plant parent. And of those plant parents, the average plant parent had killed 7 houseplants. So it stands to reason that a decently high margin of people would serve to benefit from a project like this. So in terms of the initial material considerations for this project, I do believe that most of the structural or physical components could be additively manufactured. So I have access to my own personal Bamboo Labs P1S printer with a external filament dryer and a handful of modifications that let me print more advanced materials. So on top of basic materials such as PLA and ABS and PETG, I also have access to TPU, which is a flexible thermoplastic, as well as materials like nylon and filled nylons with carbon fiber and glass, as well as materials like polypropylene. Besides that, I am also trained to use the laser cutters on campus, so I could cut sheets of plastic such as Delrin or polycarbonate or acrylic for any 2D shapes I may need for the project. The vast majority of materials for this project would be going into the watering mechanism, where I would need some sort of submersible pump. I found one for very cheap off of not AliExpress, Adafruit for about $3. A solenoid valve, which is optional because I'm not gravity feeding the water into the sprayer, but would be very useful for flow control. Obviously, the microcontroller itself, which would be either an Arduino or a Raspberry Pi, as well as a few other smaller things like silicone tubing for actually transporting the water, the sprayer nozzle for actually misting the plant, as well as a small hobby servo. And the intent of using the servo would be that if it's not a mister nozzle that I'm using, and is rather more of a closer ranged sprayer, I could essentially actuate it to sweep back and forth in order to water the plant over the entire base of the pot instead of in one area to make sure that the plant is getting all of the water that it needs. In terms of sensors that I would use, there are a handful of sensors that are readily available to purchase online that would serve this project well, such as soil moisture sensors, light sensors, pH sensors, and then a float sensor, which would be used in the reservoir to be able to track when the reservoir runs out of water and has to be refilled.